So this isn't the type of video I expected to make. What's good, you misfits? My name is Rogren, welcome back to the channel, and today I have a little bit of a different type of video. Initially, this video was going to be me taking a look at the new version of VTuber that just released, version 1.13.37, which allowed you to add like GIFs and stuff to your 3D model as little PNGs, as little objects. It's really cool. So I went to update it. I hadn't updated it in a while. I was on like 1.13.36H, I think. And I think the alpha went all the way through to like P.36P before it got to 37. I've since spent the last 2 days trying to get it to work in Wine again. So instead, I'm making a video about what I think are 5 of the biggest issues with using Linux as a content creator and as a VTuber that need to be addressed. I'd honestly, just in general, for general users as well, a lot of these issues still apply. But let's go ahead and, hey, if you like these sort of videos, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe to get notified, and if you want to see me do stuff on Linux Live, like play games and show how that works, you can check me out over on twitch.tv/itsrogren. But with that out of the way, let's just jump over and start discussing this. So to start things off, let's just talk about the big one that I've been having issues with recently, and that's Wine configurations. Wine is not easy to use. There are tools like Lutris that make it significantly easier, but I still run into problems all the time, namely with VTuber. I don't know what it is about that program that for my system specifically, it just constantly breaks, and then I'll have someone else test it and it'll work fine. It's super inconsistent on whether or not it works. For example, what I did, so if you've followed my previous tutorials on how to set up VTuber in Lutris, I did just that to set it up, and it works fine. Well, I wanted to update the program to the newest version, so I replaced the files in there. So if we jump over to the desktop, I'll show you exactly what I did. So here on the desktop, what I would do is I would open up my file manager. I would go to my downloads, and VTuber 1.37.17 or 1.13.37. I can't get the numbers right. All right, we'll go there, and now I'll go into my programs folder. As soon as I can find it, there it is. I go into programs, I go to my VTuber folder. I just take all these files and I properly highlight them, drop them into here, apply to all, overwrite. And from that point forward, VTuber would no longer launch in Lutris. If I open it up, I will click on here, I'll click play, it'll say launching, it'll act like it's running, it'll update the Wine configuration, oh, because files changed. There we go, it'll have finally updated, and then it stops. And it just won't run. So I go into configure, I'm running on the latest Lutris GE, I've tried running on the standard Wine staging, I've tried running on the system Wine, which is the same as the staging, I've tried using the 6.0 that I was using for that older version, no results. And the worst part is that now, if I delete these files and I go back to the original ones of the version I did have working, that will no longer work either. Why is this a thing? This is only an issue because there isn't a Linux native version of VTuber. And I don't blame the dev for not making a native version. It's a lot of work. They'd have to get rid of a lot of features that rely on Windows APIs. It would overall make the software worse just to make it work on Linux. And no one wants to do that. You don't want to make your product worse than it is just so that a tiny amount of other people can run it. That would be dumb. But these sort of things, if Windows users can't get it running, they're not going to use Linux. They're just going to, well, then why would I use it? I'm just going to go back to Windows. I'm just going to go back to Linux. Now, for me personally, this is not a deal breaker because I have alternatives. As you can see, I can use my 2D model, which works in Proton perfectly fine. Proton seems to be a lot more stable at changes than Wine does. Wine seems to be a little bit more finicky when it comes to when stuff updates, if it still works or not. At least with non-games. Wine seems to be that's another thing. Wine seems to be very focused on games, and specifically games, getting games to run on Linux and getting games to work. And then you try to use it for something outside of games and your results become varied. Which sucks, because there's a lot of Windows software that would be great in Wine, but just no one wants to bother because it's not a game. Why would they care? Because it's all volunteer work. I think the exception being Codeweavers. I think Codeweavers actually pays employees, and they upstream to Wine, maybe. Although Codeweavers is working with Valve for Proton, and Proton's really stable, it changes, so maybe they can update that change to Wine? I don't know. I don't know too much about Wine. I just know that this sort of stuff happens to me all the time, especially with this program. And just the fact that I can't even go back to an old version with these same old settings and it work, like, it's ridiculous. Wine's weird. It's a great tool and I love it. It's what I used to play Final Fantasy. It's what I was using to run Among Us with mods, but I haven't run that in a while. But it's got just some quirks that'll make it a pain in the ass, which is why I think Proton is such a good thing. Like, Proton is amazing. This is how I feel Wine should be. It's just a setting. You select your version, you click play, you see if it works. There should be none of this configuring in a terminal and none of this other stuff. Proton, I think, is the solution to Wine, or at least the way to make Wine where it's not such a problem. Next things I want to talk about is settings. The settings in Linux, a lot of the ones that some people need don't have any sort of GUI interface of any kind. That's terrifying for people. People aren't going to want to go to, for example, people are going to want to go to this sort of thing. So this is the KDE Plasma settings. They're going to want to go through this and figure out everything they need to change about their system. They don't want to open up a terminal and cd to /var or something, I don't know, and then list what all is in there and figure out, oh, well, do I need to go and figure out what's in the local file? The local. Yeah, there's nothing in there. Okay. Most people don't want to do this. Most people honestly probably can't do this because they don't know what they're doing. Blackmagic Design was. What do I have that's Blackmagic? Oh, that's for DaVinci Resolve. I'm dumb. Most people, they want all their settings to be right here in this one window. They want to be able to just go through this one window and change everything they need to change in just this list. Which, I mean, granted, they can change a lot of it. They can go through their audio, they can go through their Bluetooth, they can go through the power management, display settings, gamma, compositor, all that fun stuff. Night color is something I should probably use, but don't. Thunderbolt settings even. It's not available on the system because I don't have anything compatible with Thunderbolt. And like all these things, the majority of them are here, but there's certain things for specific applications that are still stuck behind a terminal that needs to change. And that actually leads into the next one, which is the terminal itself. The terminal is one of Linux's greatest strengths, but it's also its biggest weakness. And that's simply because it is terrifying for new users. A user who's been using this for years and years won't have a problem with it. But a user who is brand new to it and doesn't know what they're doing, you show them a terminal on how to install programs and they freak out and be like, no, put it back, put Windows back on there. And that's just how it is. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's how people are. You can't change the entirety of people's behavior to suit what you think is better. It's just not going to happen. In fact, I think there's some studies, I remember reading this a little while, that show that the more you try to prove someone wrong, the more it reinforces their ideas. It's like the, I forget the name of it. God, I can't remember. I read it a couple years ago. But yeah, but it reinforces their bias the more you try to prove them wrong. It's like psychologically trying to prove you wrong as you talk to them or something like that. I don't remember a lot of the details. But yeah, it's a problem. The terminal is just terrifying for people. No one likes to use it. Unless you are someone who is used to Linux and has been using it for a while, no one wants to use the terminal. I shouldn't say no one. A select few would, but they are the outliers. They're not the majority. I myself, I don't mind the terminal, but I prefer to not use it if I can help it. It's one of those things that just, it's nice to have, but I see it as a last resort more so than anything. One of the next things is a gripe that I've had about years, and you could probably see it on my Twitter, and that is instructions for software. Oh God, are they bad. Let's jump over to the desktop and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if we open up Firefox as soon as it loads and go to github.com, GitHub, there we are, cool. We'll go to this repository. Actually, this is decent, but it does show one issue. Yeah, actually. So to use this application, we're just displaying the screen, run QVH GStreamer and it will work. What is QVH GStreamer? I have no idea what that is. Oh, I mean, I have a vague idea of what GStreamer is, but what's QVH? But and someone new to it wouldn't know what GStreamer is. It's just one of those things that people assume these things about Linux users that aren't necessarily true. So let's go back to the main GitHub and let's go to YouTube DL. This one's actually pretty good. So, I mean, I've only saved really big ones that have really good support for Linux instructions, but something if you start going through random pages on GitHub, so if I explore Avocado PlayStation 1 emulator, the game off thing, Google Media Pipe, made in India, there's just like my recommended or something. Let's go, I don't know, trending, sure, why not? Random page. Okay, this is for programmers. That one gets a pass. Serenity OS? What? It's a level 90s users with custom Unix like core. Oh my god, this is kind of cool actually. Of course, when I'm trying to show it off, I can't find anything, but I think you can see my point. A lot of software assumes Linux users know things that they may or may not know. That is a bit of a problem. It makes it seem like someone using Linux, if they're too dumb for it, even though they could totally do it if the instructions would just tell them how. Software developers, and I've been seeing it less and less, but software developers need to stop assuming that every Linux user is a developer or a programmer, because not everyone is. I'm not. I don't build software. I mean, I've started to figure out tricks about it because it's starting to feel like it's necessary for me to use this OS, but it shouldn't be that way. There's all these really cool pieces of software that just you have to compile yourself. Typically, if I see a piece of software that I think is really cool and I really want to use it, but I see I have to compile it myself, I just don't use it. No matter how cool I think it is, I just don't use it. And lastly, the last thing about Linux is that I have gripes with is the community. Hear me out. Hear me out. It's not the entire community, but certain subsections of it. Namely the ones who gatekeep and make it seem like you have to be a programmer using Arch in order to be considered an actual Linux user, quote unquote. That kind of bullshit. Stop that. Just stop. Just stop. Do you want us to get more support? Then shut the fuck up and let people use it. Linux is the smallest used operating system. Not counting like BSD or Haiku or those more offshooting ones. Of like well-known operating systems, Linux is the least used. You have to deal with that. My cat just jumped onto my chair and then jumped off onto a plastic bottle. These are the things I deal with. Linux is the least used of all the majorly known operating systems. The majorly known operating systems being Mac, Windows, Android, iOS, Linux. Console, I guess, could be considered operating systems now, but I think the majority of console OSs are like variations of BSD now, which I guess means that technically BSD now has more users. Oh, that's weird to think about. Oh, and Chrome OS, which technically Chrome OS is forked from Linux, but again, it's forked from Linux. It's not Linux anymore. My cat just nearly fell. You good? Yeah, don't jump on my chair, especially right as I'm moving it. Yeah, no, jumping on a moving object doesn't work, does it? She jumped at my chair right as I was moving, and so she almost missed and nearly fell off. Oh god, this cat is obsessed with jumping on this chair. Okay, back on topic. Shut the fuck about gatekeeping. If people want to use it, but they want to use all GUIs, let them. Stop trying to gatekeep people. I can't speak today. That is how upset I am. Again, this isn't the entire community. In my experience, it's been a very small minority, but they are a very loud minority, or can be a very loud minority. It's nowhere near as bad as apparently, like, if you got into Linux 7 or 8 years ago, if you went on like Reddit, you would have just people swarming your posts about help on Linux with just RTFM, which if you don't know stands for read the fucking manual. That doesn't help people. Most people don't even know where the hell the manual is. Hell, I still don't know how to bring up manual pages in a terminal because I don't need to. I can just look it up online in my search engine. Was gonna say in Google, but I don't use Google and I change search engines like every 2 months. But this was a bit of a rambly video. I apologize for that. I just needed to get something recorded because I've been having issues for 2 days with VC Face. Oh God. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys still watching the weird rambliness that is this video. But hey, if you liked it, make sure, again, you hit that like button, you subscribe to get notified, and hit the bell to actually get notified, because that's how YouTube works. I stream on Twitch over at twitch.tv/itsrogren if you want to see me play games on Linux and do a couple other things. I'm starting to do some quote unquote IRL videos. When this goes up, I'll have just done a stream about modding a 8BitDo Pro 2 controllers with mechanical switches. No idea how that's gone yet because I haven't done it, but by the time this video is up, it'll be done, it'll be over, and I'll have either made one of the coolest controllers ever or broken my controller. One of the two, who knows? Find out, watch me on Twitch. You can also support me over on Patreon, where I post videos a couple days in advance. I was saying a week, but it's lining up more to be like 3 to 4 days in advance. So check out over there if you want to see videos in advance. I've been Rogren. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Peace out.